resume recording, but the last several days, I mean, last 2 days, with the exception of today with the pullback, but had a solid day on the 22nd and a big pop 23rd, which was yesterday, and the pullback to, and the thing about it, it pulled back into range within range of these, like the within the highs and the closing areas of that. If it pulled back below these areas of support, that would have been a concern. But there is a little bit of a gap up on Zoom right now that is probably going to, there's a chance it pulls back to 150.25, 152 range, 150 to 152. This is all the support areas for Zoom right now. Then there's another gap up. So Zoom has there's going to be some things that may need to be rectified with Zoom. But, you know, that it's just going to be something to pay attention to as we go. Because this is going to be a competitive arena for, let's see, for the foreseeable future. All right, we have some action coming, guys. That's good. And utilize the chat bar. Let's see if I can make sure that stays at the top. There we go. Mr. Yeah.
Hello.
Yes. Hey, I'm gonna end up muting everyone. So just I appreciate you coming in tonight, and we'll get everything going shortly. Mo, I got you set up. We're good to go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're good to go.
All right, it's just can you see my face? I know you can see the back. Well, I can see the background. Can you see my face?
No, I can see the background. I see the.
That's what I thought.
I like that though, man. Hey, Katie, I actually got in on Nat the other day, and I hopped out. But it was holding steady. That's actually on the list, so we'll touch on that shortly, man. Did you hop in? Let's see here. Oh, nice, great. I'm glad you got in on that, man. Good deal. How's everything going with you, Mo?
Everything's good. Everything's good.
Okay.
It's been an adjusting week, but
well.
Everything's good.
Okay. Good. Well, I got the screen up for us, man. I got the weekly strength chart that I kind of mentioned to you. Just some weekly. We'll touch on that as we get going, but we'll hit our topics and then run the game plan.
Sounds good.
So let's see who we have. We have Katasha, KD. We have new employee number 9. All right, Mr. Yates, Randy. I believe that's Randy Yates or Ray Yates. And but we'll utilize the chat bar, everyone. Thank y'all for coming in, and we'll really get things going. Just let some other people kind of float in over the next few minutes, and we'll really get going. Mr. Russell Yates, what's going on, Russell? You know what? I need to clear the screen for y'all. I was trying to make sure I could add that a note upon entry to where everyone, I was able to pin it before. Hey, can you hear my volume fine?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Let's see. All right, welcome everyone. Tonight is Friday, April 24th, 2020, and welcome to the Market Wrap-Up Show with JD and Mo. Maurice, thank you for coming in with us again tonight and doing our tag team on the market. How's everything going with you?
Everything's going good, except my camera. I don't know what's going on, so I'm trying to fix it in the background. But other
Try
than
to
that,
get the camera in the background.
I'm
No,
trying
no
to see
problem.
what's up.
No, we're
But,
good to go, man. You got the perfect emblem up there, man. It almost looks like the Tesseract from Transformers or something.
yeah, I don't know exactly what that is. It's just it's a pic I get. I have this app on my phone that gives me like cool wallpapers, and so
All
that's
right.
just one of them. And so I saved it.
You just popped it on there. Well,
Yeah.
first thing we're going to look at today is how the overall market did. And let's go to the official. Let's see here. We'll go to the Dow. Dow was up 260. That's the daily chart. Right. We'll just leave it like that for now. That was a daily chart on the Dow. Popped up 260. Had a little news. The issues right now that are going on, some of them are the small business funds, man. This is right in your, as the economist on the show, Mo, that we're hearing about the funds that are almost about to run out. We had, let's see, a backlog in application, but that was on companies like Ruth's Chris, Shake Shack. They took the small business loan at on the corporate side, and they're giving back. Ruth's Chris is giving back 20 million. Is giving back 10 because almost is like a loophole in the funds for a true small business. Have you been able to put that?
I think it's interesting that you say loophole, because that's exactly what it is. Like, small business, what most people generally, the general public, consider small business, and what the IRS and the federal government consider small business is usually on two totally different ends of the spectrum. So it's weird because I don't know much about the corporate aspect of Ruth's Chris, but I would think that they would actually fall in the realm of a small business. Even, if you're talking about the IRS or federal terms, they just may. And I'm sure that
they qualified under the,
right.
they didn't fudge the numbers.
Exactly. Yeah. So they just, like I was just about to say, they don't want to get back the money, but they're just doing it to save face. So to look good for the public or whatever. But they probably qualify. It's just, it sucks that no matter what, like the small guy, kind of always gets the short end of the stick. Like those guys just, have better access to the politicians and to,
the connections with the banks.
The connections with the banks. And so,
right.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that they were able to get the funding, and most of the larger small businesses took the funding first. They had the access, and
the relationships with the banks, and that's what we've been watching. But
and this administration, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Right.
Well, we had the Dow popped off of news. They're going to fund a couple other topics that occurred that I wanted to touch on. Man, is that the idea that I'll pull jets. This is the ETF, everyone. This is the ETF for the airline industry. We're looking at the daily chart. Let's go weekly. I like to look at a weekly outlook, and it's over the past several weeks. We call that the Corona waterfall. It found some support.
Lost 50%, more than 50%.
Well, man, and the thing about it, it found a somewhat of a bottom, and it's kind of chopped right here, kind of consolidating, but there's no direction because there's hasn't been any just a guarantee in either way that, you have United accepting the funds, accepting the criteria around it. But when today President Trump, and I put that tag on there because I wanted President Obama to receive the same tag at the beginning. President Trump mentioned, he floated the idea of the government may possibly buy the tickets in advance, airline tickets in advance. Did you hear that phrase? No,
I didn't. I missed that piece of news.
I'm going to watch JETS, guys. And of course, we have an airline basket. just type it in right here, and I put it on Thinkorswim, and I'll pull up my airlines over to the left-hand side of the screen. You know, American, Alaska. I need to put Mesa's in here, which is very low, but your big ones, where's Delta? Delta, which has struggled for the last, I mean, that same trend right here, and we go back to jets, the same layout. So this is a way for us to track the entire sector as a whole. I bet Americans are a little bit sharper, well, similar layouts as well. And keep an eye on this. This is UAL is a transportation ETF as well. So it's a weak sector. We know the airlines will come back one day, but will they? I mean, which ones?
Mm-hmm. That's the question.
That's
the question.
Every era, man, of contagion, they've all filed bankruptcy before. The majority of the industry has filed bankruptcy and reorganized. But it's tough to flip the coin and figure out, okay, what are your thoughts on that, Mo?
As far as the transportation sector?
Yeah, and primarily the airlines.
I mean, you know, I think eventually, you know, barring, well, it's hard to say because this is unprecedented times. So it's like we don't know what people are going to be. It's funny. I was just telling my wife this morning. We were talking this morning, and you know, I was telling her it's going to be interesting from an economic perspective to see how consumer preferences change after, you know, in the next 6 months, the next year. You know how, you know, people are going to look at different food restaurants, different gathering places, and just preferences around everything. And so when thinking about that, of course, travel comes into mind. I would still like to say, like, you know, people, especially Americans, we're going to want to travel. We're going to want to see the world. We're going to want to, you know, have vacations and get back to the quote unquote American dream. But at the same time, you know, Trump shutting down border as far as for immigration, and you know what I'm saying? Like, it's very there are a lot of protectionist policies this administration is putting forward, and like, you know, if you wear meanness on your face, man, people gonna stay away. Like, and that's just how I feel. So you know, I'm interested to see how, you know, this is gonna play out. I would like to say, or not like to say, I would like to think that airlines, you know, will bounce back. Just like you said, it's going to be which ones. Definitely. I mean, I live in Atlanta, which is the home of Delta Airlines.
We're fans of Delta.
Right. I'm a huge fan. Like Delta, I see them probably being one of the last ones standing, if anything.
Yeah.
But
my wife, you know, you and my wife and are a lot of times on the same page with you know, the economics of things, the common sense economics of eyeball test. But go ahead.
No, it's the common sense of economics. It's interesting.
That's you know how you just drive your area. Just to sidebar, when you remember when Chipotle years ago, when it first had that contagion, when they had Syria.
Yep.
And okay, well, this is a strength one right now, but years back, I mean, it's probably over 5 years ago, right? But anyway, I travel, you know, all the time. That was my go-to spot, Chipotle. And I was like, I'm not going back in that spot until I see people in line. I would go by it and just, you would drive by and it would be no one in line, kind of like what we're going through right now. I finally started looking at the stock and also looking at eating in there when I saw the lines kind of wrapping back around the building, how they used to be. So that's the common sense eyeball test. And I think you as an economist and my wife is just the common sense queen, man, of understanding numbers. And she's in the airline industry. And you're saying the majority of her calls that she would get would be, this is months ago, that were cancellations. It was like the trend became cancellation, concern, change. but she always mentioned that Delta was ahead of the curve on stopping flights or putting certain policies in place to protect their employees, which is big, and most of all the consumer and then the investor. If you think investor first, which a lot of companies do, we're trying to coming to see that right now, who's being placed first in the corporation's eyes.
Yep.
One more topic, man. You were talking about Delta. I mentioned that he also mentioned taking stakes in energy companies because natural gas. I've heard this theory. We're talking about USO. Everyone's talking about oil. We'll go to WTI. Let's see, WTI. Let's see if that. That's not it. Other thing, but if the issue was, there's a lot of these small oil sectors and oil companies in Texas, Oklahoma, Wyoming that are struggling to make their payments on the mortgages because of the oversupply. Well, they said the natural gas sector may find a little bit of a boost. Now, I'm not getting ahead of price, and Maurice and I will talk about that, but the fracking, I know everyone knows about fracking, drilling for natural gas in different areas, but they have to pump fresh water into that area. And something about that natural gas is involved when they find the the shell. Anyway, they said that it could be a positive move, but everything could be, possibly, maybe, which you don't want to go ahead of price before price establishes itself. You want to talk on that a little bit at all?
Well, what I can say, as far as from the natural gas aspect, if I remember correctly, and anybody could, correct me if I'm wrong, but natural gas is a byproduct of the oil drilling, and especially the fracking.
Right.
Drilling. And what fracking is like you said, they basically have a machine that takes sand and water and shoots it it's like a needle, and it shoots the needle into the rocks where the oil and the gas are. And it's like when the sand and the water goes in, it breaks up the rock, and the first thing that usually comes out, or the first thing that's supposed to come out, is the natural gas. So it's like the byproduct of getting the crude oil. So being now, that's it, as far as it being connected to the oil and the fracking. As far as it being a more viable energy source, like I just once again, like, kind of common sense, I kind of think about what natural gas is used for, and you know only things I can really think of is home heating and air conditioning and like propane like stuff. And so,
Right.
like, it
So
I don't know. I guess it depends on what is your question, or what not question, but I guess what is your thesis in approaching the natural gas? Like,
I was
think it's gonna take over oil.
No, I was referencing or relaying what a gentleman had mentioned on, it was actually CNBC. He was they had the Texas Rail Commission, then they had a guy who's a oil trader, and then they had a gentleman who was in the natural, in the energy field, and he said, other than oil, they're looking at natural gas, and he was looking at natural gas futures as not. I'm not looking at that in that sector because I don't really. I feel we talk about manipulation in the regular stock market. There's those commodities, man. If I have to deal with oil barons or ministers of oil, when they call it, and that's a global commodity, and assassinations will happen behind oil reserves. Wars have started behind, and so if we think, oh man, they're manipulating this stock price, well, they are absolutely holding the finger on the spigot of the oil. Just the intake, the outtake, the drilling has gone down over the last several months. So I think that's a sector to be careful in, you know.
Oil is one of those sectors. If anybody, you know, reads, different traders or different investors, banking and oil tend to be like kind of two sectors that are quote unquote reserved for, more skill. But I mean, and it's also, or like you said, oil is different. And I guess what I could add to that, especially with being careful, is especially also with what we've seen happen with WTI crude oil this past week and some change. It just basically falling through the floor. We have to just kind of thinking about that globally, like WTI. Like when you see WTI crude oil, that represents all the U.S. crude oil. That's oil that we drill for and we produce and send off to refineries. When you see Brent crude, that is foreign oil. That's all the Saudi oil. That's the Middle Eastern oil, and sometimes South American oil. But like what just happened in oil happened to U.S. oil. That's the basic point that I want to make. Like,
Right.
at a time when global oil is also suffering. So we have I mean, the U.S. supply gut is, I would be very, 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 very careful with oil companies because it's a lot of oil and there's no demand because people, as much as the government is trying to quote unquote open things back up, I mean, people are not doing anything. The airlines are one of the largest consumers of this oil and they're grounded. Like there's no oil to go anywhere. So, man, it's just,
Well, yeah, there's no place to go with the,
right.
it's just stuck in a location, the glut, they're oversupply. So the basic tenets of supply and demand, I mean, you got oversupply, so that the price is down, there's,
It's like all that Easter candy at the grocery store. That's why it's so cheap right now. Nobody could go anywhere.
go get the peeps. Shout out to my
Yep.
wife. My beautiful wife is in here. Thank you.
Hey.
But on Ellaby. But one thing I want to touch on again, okay, we had to see the fractional shares, and I just also this is the new normal right here, man. Pulling guidance. We have a big earnings week coming up. So everybody is like, okay, we're pulling forward guidance. And if we can, let me just pull that up right here, just the phrase for newbies. And I go to investopedia.com. Are you seeing the screen right now? Investopedia?
No, I see a chart right now.
Okay, new share, and let's go. We'll share that. Bam, is that Investopedia?
Yep, there we go.
Oh yeah, okay. We'll go with the new normal, and I'm going to type in forward guidance. Forward guidance definition, and on investopedia.com, we can look at guidance definition. I like to look at forward guidance right now. And what is forward guidance? Refers to the communication from a central bank about the state of the economy and likely future course of monetary policy. But that can be the larger macro picture, but each company itself, when they do their earnings, their quarterly earnings, a lot of times it's become commonplace, and you can expound on this, Mo, for a company to release forward guidance. Okay, we beat on the top and bottom lines. What is our outlook for the future? You know what? We're getting a Corona boost, but I don't think these membership numbers will hold over the next 2 quarters because I think it's just everyone stuck indoors unless, well, you know what? Since the Corona is the unknown, we're going to do a COVID pullback and we're going to pull guidance and everybody's doing it. What are your thoughts, Mo?
A lot.
Okay.
I mean, no, I didn't mean to say it like that. But
yeah.
Forward guidance. I've been writing about it in my report for some months I believe even going back into last year, forward guidance has been the one of the key indicators that have been um, moving stock prices, especially right after earnings.
Man, I hope everybody's recording that phrase right there, man. You said one of the key. Say it again, man. I've been
Well,
talking.
now I can say that for the market in the last since maybe 2016, 2017, late 2017, the market and a lot of the stock price movements, especially after earnings, have been based on forward guidance. And forward guidance is when, like, what happens with an earnings announcement, the company comes out and they say, this is what we made the last 3 quarters, this is how much we earned or didn't earn, this is how much revenue we had, this is what we expected from last quarter, and this is how we did, and this is what we expect for the next quarter and what we expect for the next year. Those expectations for the next quarter and the next year is what's called forward guidance. And investors have been clinging on those words. That's why a lot of times it's funny, but a lot of times, if you're in the BSI group on Facebook or any stock group on Facebook, and traders that trade earnings, I don't recommend trading earnings, but traders that trade
Perfect.
earnings, and they go in and like, oh, it went up and it hit my price target after hours, and then 2 hours later after the earnings call, it shoot back down and it go, it take you out. Usually it's because forward guidance, whatever the management was expecting to happen for the rest of the and I mean, like, coming from a more economic and accounting perspective, like that, the investors actually kind of do cling on forward guidance because all markets are forward looking, and all of these large companies, these banks,
Those are nuggets.
institutions, these investment banks, like they all hire and pay analysts to sit on these calls when these companies release earnings. And if you ever sit and listen, I suggest everybody at least sit and listen to one earnings call. If you sit and listen to one earnings call, the management will come in and they'll say what's going on, and then after they do their spiel and they talk about the company or whatever and what they expect, they allow analysts that have either called in or are in place to ask questions. And usually these analysts will be from Barclays, or they'll be from JP Morgan, or they'll be from Goldman Sachs. These are the people that Barclays and JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs are paying to know everything about this company, so because they have invested in this company and they want a return on their investment. So all of these analysts use the accounting numbers and they use all of this information in their financial modeling and their financial analysis. And they will model, depending on the type of fund. If it's a mutual fund, they may have to model out 3 or 5 years. So they have expectations now of what a Cisco is supposed to be making in 2023 based on what's going on the last 4 or 5 years. And so when things don't happen according to that expectation, they have to change, rearrange and change all their numbers again. So regardless of how you look at it, like, the forward guidance is a number that's been moving. And like, kind of outside of all of the background, like, especially now the last few months, now that you know how important forward guidance is, all of these companies have been pulling a forward guidance. Like, so they basically telling the investors, we don't know what we're going to do. So all the numbers you got in your Excel sheet, all your accounting from the last 5 years, all your forecasts that, V lookups and, I forget what the Excel function is, but what all your algorithms and everything that take in future forecasts, y'all can go in and toss that, because we don't know. We can't give you no numbers.
The model's broken right now.
We can't give you no numbers. There is
well, that's amazing, man, that you said that. And my wife says I say amazing all the time, but man, she's trying to have me find a new word for this time that we're in, because I said, wow, baby, this is an amazing time. But I'm not saying amazing like, wow.
In a good way. It's
a crazy, and I don't want to crazy, but I was like, okay, said Irvin, Said's a longtime investor. He's in our group. He mentioned, companies have been trying to move away from, I'm reading a quote that he wrote in the chat box. A lot of companies have been trying to move away from providing guidance before the virus. And he's basically saying right now, they have the golden opportunity to accelerate the process of not offering guidance, and you get a free pass on saying, because a lot of times that would be looked at as negative. And right now, it's almost being looked at as prudent because you're taking yourself off the hook. And okay, everybody.
Imagine if this was last March and Apple said we pulling guidance.
The sell-off would be in. People,
man, come on, son.
Forget the iPhones. We're going back to flip phones.
Come on, son.
Back to the old Nino Brown phones on the hip where you carry the charger on you. No more of this. I'm going to a DAT phone or what. But okay, we got the forward-looking guidance, and one of the things Maurice touched on, everyone, was playing earnings. Do not, be careful, because I have some friends who look at the market, and the thing is, you can research all you want, and you can look at, they'll have the earnings. Okay, we'll go to this website right here, earningswhispers.com. And you might see, they might talk about, let's touch AMD. They're reporting on the 28th of April. And this is a pretty good website. I'm going to put it in the chat, guys.
Oh, yeah, I use them. I have their email come to, their newsletter or whatever, come to my email every.
Y'all, everybody in the chat, you guys need to follow, man. Follow Maurice. I use the Force a lot. I'm more of a dreamer, but I do a lot of analytics from the standpoint of charting and audiobooks. I'm a big reader, but audiobooks also, I call them book by phone. But Maurice turns the pages the old school way, whispers, and he picks up on trends and historical movements, and we're going to put his email in there at the end. But if you look, there's expected moves during earnings period. You have the expected moves, you have historical volatility, and then you want to expect what the numbers, like, look right here where it says, what do you expect when AMD reports earnings? Who can, okay, yeah, you can predict what you expect them to be, whether it's a beat or a miss on the top and bottom lines. But if you're trying to play this into the stock price, do not do it unless you are an expert or you're good in the exotics of an options trade, whether you're doing a straddle, a strangle, a calendar spread, things to capitalize on in a highly volatile move or a very little, just a small tick in the chart, because we don't know if these prices have been baked in, unbaked, or not even, you can't take into account certain things that are occurring. Think of it like Bitcoin, which I'm a huge fan of King B, and cryptocurrencies. About it, and Maurice is going to talk on this, is that let's just say you were trying to predict the earnings of Bitcoin. How you can predict supply and demand, and we don't know what the controlling factor is other than, okay, I'm checking the charts, but is there a black swan event coming? Are these analysts incorrect about an earnings beat, or expound on what I'm going with, Mo? I'm going off of my, off using I'm a gut feel guy also.
Okay, so two things I could say. First of all, dealing with earnings, just quite honestly, and this is researchable. There are better strategies to play around earnings than to play through earnings, and that have been proven higher statistical returns the week going into earnings, and what is called post-earnings announcement drift, which is the price action after earnings, and how the price initially reacts to the euphoria of either the actual earnings announcement and or the management's call and their forward guidance. And then there's the next 2 weeks after the earnings date and how, or after the day after the earnings call, and how the price reacts or drifts to what was expected, or what's called reversion to the mean. So like, just instead, like taking 3 hours, taking 5 hours and researching those strategies, will lend you better results. And like I said, you can research this as playing, I call them playing earnings. They're like it's like lotto. It's really a coin toss, because
Flip, man. It's a
you
flip.
don't know, and you can tell it's that because they announce earnings outside of market hours. It's either before the open or after the close. So you can't do anything about your position while things are going on. There's a good body of evidence that shows price tends to act a certain way 5 to 7 days before the earnings announcement. And if you can get into those or look at that trend, you can benefit there. And then, like I said, also the post earnings announcement drift. So
You can see them lining up the bus station on certain tickers, week leading up, like you said, the 7 days prior, 5 to 7 days prior, even 14 days if you're getting in position. And if you're a long-term investor, that's the quarterly earnings. And Warren Buffett says this all the time, that he wishes that companies didn't give guidance or do operate quarterly, because if you're a long-term investor, he's like, I can't tell you what the stock price is going to do over the next 10 minutes or even 10 hours or even 10 days. But over the next 10 years, the probability of this company that I've researched and done my due diligence on, or perform my due diligence, the probability is very high that this stock price will be higher than it is today in the next 10 years. I'm not saying every company, but the particular companies, and Mo's a historian on Buffett as well. And I'm sure Seth Irvin in this room and others in here are also big followers. But I pulled up something on Investopedia. I typed in strategies for quarterly earnings season. And I just went down to analyst forecasts. And this is something for newbies and this is what Mo was talking about. We have analysts use forecasting models, guidance, and other fundamentals in order to come up with an earnings per share estimate, EPS. So the market uses these estimates to determine how a company will perform when the earnings are released. So it's basically a guess right now. You can say, I have this, we have that. You have some companies who are popping during this process right now. And like, for example, Zoom has taken a run. They hit 300 million users, and they're up 100 million users since March. So they've capitalized, even with the initial security issues. They made a quick maneuver. I mean, if you can see the security tab right now, and everything's required to have a password. So I want to kind of get away from that, but I just want to touch on earnings, because this upcoming week, we'll go over the list real quick, but this upcoming week, what we're having for earnings, it's going to be a huge earnings week. And we have Monday, you have Bayer and Adidas. These are just some key names. On Tuesday, we have Caterpillar, 3M, Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google. Wednesday's big. We'll go Boeing, Facebook, Tesla, and Microsoft. And those are some, those have ATR, some big time ATR. So the market will move. The market will be tied to the movements of those companies starting. I pretty much see the tick moving Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Amazon pops in on Thursday along with Apple, Visa, McDonald's. And then Friday, you have some of the oil. We'll have something tied to oil with Chevron, ExxonMobil, Clorox, and Honeywell. So keep an eye on the upcoming earnings week and expect some price fluctuations going throughout that week. Your thoughts on the upcoming earnings week?
It's gonna be big.
This was jam-packed, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm prepared for it. I don't usually, like I said, trade earnings. What I'm watching for and what I keep an eye on is um, keeping the larger things that we have, on the table right now that are in play. Keeping those in mind, like how certain companies do, how my discount retail companies gonna do, how the big box
Yeah,
retail
let's go to
companies
DG. I'm gonna pull up
how you know some of these tech companies. It's interesting that
the Dollar General.
doing I need to look up this ETF, but in my report I highlighted sector seasonality. This was a time to start buying into computer tech this month, and lo and behold, computer tech is one of the best performing
The sector
seemingly sector because everybody's at home on their computer. So,
and the
you
queues
know,
have been running.
I mean, even on good days where all the indexes are doing well, the Nasdaq has just been doing a little bit better. So, um, I'm looking to see how. Let me see. Yeah, today, not today. April was the start of yeah, that's kind of a nugget from the report there. April was the start of sector seasonality for computer tech, um,
Well,
into computer tech.
well, guys, Maurice, he puts out a monthly report that's all encompassing of details and breaks down just his analysis of the market, his research, and things like that. It's in
Aaron, let me have the screen.
yeah,
It's the
take it,
last
take
week,
it.
and I'm going into. I'm actually about to start preparing for
It's
May's
all yours.
report, so I could give um
Yeah, please
a
do.
little preview. The report. Oh, and that kind of goes into the second thing that I was going to say, as far as with Bitcoin and trying to value Bitcoin and then follow the price. Like Bitcoin don't have earnings, and it's a shameless plug for my DCG crew. We go through great, great lengths to understand all the markets. That's why I'm so in depth with it. Like you say, is because I help create this mastermind report that we put out every month, and it's geared towards all markets, but mainly crypto and stock markets. And so, just kind of going to the stock section, like I said, um, I usually give an overview and kind of go through some things. And just like
That looks
I was saying
amazing.
before, like here, also watch for our earnings announcements. Um, like I say, it could be a signal of confidence depending on when companies start issuing earnings again or issuing earnings um, guidance again. Let me see. It was something I wanted to show. I go through different, different markets, different sectors, and uh, show how they, um, affect the stock market. But this was one of the main things that like is my sector seasonality, and I usually go through different sectors. And like I was saying, through the stock almanac, April seasonality starts um, with computer tech this month. So these were some ETFs that I suggested for traders to look at for sectors, and then I also give an overall strategy for um, the entire month, and which days are statistically the better days to buy, the better days to sell. Um, what days you can look for swings. So I'll kind of give y'all a little tidbit since it's a few people on the call. Statistically, Tuesdays have been the best day to buy in April, and Wednesday the best day to sell. So with this earnings coming up this week, I'm expecting even before it's Friday now, even before going into the week, no matter what, if I'm gonna make a trade because of history, and this is going back to the 1950s because of history. I can confidently look into making the swing trade from Tuesday to Wednesday because historically that's what it's been. Now this month has been, because it's April and because it's coronavirus, like it's been different, but April still has held to a lot of the seasonalities. April has been one of the last strongest months of the year, and a lot of it dealing with the tax deadline. I had spoke earlier in the month about seeing how the market will react to the tax deadline, not being pushed back to July. But humans are humans, and we're creatures of habit. That's something that a lot of my economics professors kind of dug in, is that we're creatures of habit. And so you know I'm I'm kind of surprised, but also not surprised that April was relatively strong. But I will also say, give another nugget. April ends. Let's see, go back to the top. April ends the best 6 months of the year for the stock market. Historically there are times in the market where it's seasonally strong, and then there are other times where it's seasonally weak. So April it ends the best 6 months of the year, meaning that May begins the worst 6 months of the year. So a lot of this pent up pressure, pent up price pressure, a lot of these things are why I've been apprehensive about saying it's a bottom and there's a bull run coming. Like, we're going into, statistically, and like I said, going back into the early 1900s, we're going into a statistically weak time of the market. And it's weak because most full-time traders, they get paid by these banks to come in and buy and sell all of these shares. They have lives like everybody else, and normally they take summer vacations, they take time off from the family, kids are out of school. Like, the market is just weaker, and
Volume dries up around these times, right?
It does. And you ain't got to take my word for it. You can check the facts. I could show you reports from the last 6 months, where it shows that. And you can kind of go back. The market is just weaker. So I'm just taking all of that into consideration. We have earnings coming up this week. So it being a major week, a lot of major companies, it's setting up for a possible Tuesday to Wednesday strength. Now there may be some Monday to Wednesday strength, or Tuesday to Thursday strength, or Monday to Tuesday. But just historically, even before I look at any stocks, I'm looking at possibly Tuesday to Wednesday to make a swing trade. And then finally, I go through several stocks throughout the month, and I guess I could go with actually I'm gonna go with this one because it's been a hot topic this month. I go with Zoom. I'll do I go over some fundamentals about the company, what's going on with the company, some technicals, where it is, where support and resistance is, where I as far as for price and volume, where I would watch price levels, and where to set my alerts if I decide to trade Zoom this month. And I write this for myself a lot, just to because there are so many stocks and there's so many things, just to keep myself focused. I know that any day with this report, I got 10, 12, 14 stocks that I can look at immediately, and that I've been following, that I've researched, that I know what's going on. I can see, their charts. I know where support and resistance is. I have a basic idea of what's going on with the company. I also have some ETFs that, should the market, look into, or should I look to trade, some ETFs, I have some that I can choose from throughout the month. And the rest of it is, just information,
And
to
that's more
understand the stock
outstanding.
market.
That's the process, your process. And I don't think, I think people are starting, as a newbie, if or a new trader, intermediate trader, just getting into it, they realize that initially you don't realize how much work goes into it, but then just looking at just one of your stocks, the level of detail that you put into it, that
And it take time. But at the same time, I would like to say, and this is also, another shameless shout out to DCG. Like, you know, I do it like this because this is how Morgan Stanley does it. This is how J.P. Morgan does it. This is how Berkshire Hathaway does it. This is all of
Beautiful.
these big companies that if anybody's been following me for some time, I've call myself Black Berkshire. Like I want to be the next Warren Buffett. If I don't, get there, it's whatever. But I believe in looking after those and doing what those that are in that position do. And with my report, with the research that I do on this every month, and even I'll try to swing past some pages in the crypto. Like all of the research that we do to understand, what's going on in, the crypto market, what's going on in all of these markets, and how, they fit into everything. Like, you know, even with the crypto market, we go day by day of what we can expect for the market, what coins we're looking at. Like we go through great lengths, and that's because we take pride in being able to say these prices went where we said they was gonna go. And like I said, you don't have to just take my word for it. You can hashtag DCG in Facebook. You can ask people that's been in the group. You can ask people that are in the group. DCG been on, like, I can't say how on point with the dates and the times for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies have been on point for this month. And not to mention just those, but we can also come back down and we can talk about the price levels for Zoom and for Dollar General and for Kroger and Apple and all of these companies that I go into research with. So we take a lot of pride in um, being analysts and being traders and living free life and taking life by the horns and doing our best and being our best. And so, if anybody want to be on the quick list for or the early sign up list for May's report, where all our analysts, we this is our time the last 5 to 7 days of the month. We're all getting into preparing May's reports. So reach out to me, reach out to JD. You can reach out to Jamar James. um, Reach out.
Absolutely, man. I go. I don't know if you put your email or you want to share.
I'll put it in the
Put it in the chat.
I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, do that and email. Reach out and email Maurice, man, and because that's some in depth. That's an in depth look because everybody doesn't have time to sit and research. I know, especially with if people are working from home, teaching from home, remote locations, and then you have to this dinner has to get on the table, go outside and walk, cover up. There's a lot of things, but then there's a lot of interest that other individuals have and want to start researching. Uh, it would definitely help. If you have interest in this, go ahead and email Maurice because I think I love the report that he puts out there and that group puts out. I like doing a lot of research, but also I realize it's time consuming. But you have some sectors that you're drawn to. There's 11 sectors in the S&P. I mean, just period sectors that people focus on, and within those sectors, man, we can find what is it? My mentor used to say, a preponderance of opportunities. But I just think, look, you want me to get the screen or are you?
I just pulled it down. I didn't have anything
It's
else
all
to
you.
show, so it's all good. I was gonna show off Koifin, but I see all of them numbers and I'm like,
Okay.
I'm gonna wait on that one.
Well, I'll tell you this. Let's touch on this real quick. Let me get my camera back going. I stopped my camera. But
while you're doing that, what I just kind of to close out as far as what I'm thinking about for earnings, not necessarily looking into any particular trades right now, but it's Friday. I don't know. I haven't read my papers yet, and some might jump out to me by Sunday. But right now, what I'm looking forward to is just like I said, the overall themes that are in play right now. If those companies are going to report according to those themes, the ones that have been doing bad, are they going to continue to report bad and pull forward guidance? And the ones that have been doing good, are they going to continue to do good? And will they still pull forward guidance? So that's kind of how I'm looking at it.
Okay. Well, I think the theme is going to stay the same with pulling forward guidance, except like I'm, man, I can't see who wouldn't, but Microsoft might run with it. I don't know. I'm not going to even try to guess on that. That's just. I'm just going to ride with it. I wanted to touch on also once we get move on to the next segment after that. I do want to touch on the weekly strength chart that we were looking at, and a lot of the a good handful of tickers that you had on yours that you follow are on there. But I also left off Dollar General on app. I overlooked it, and Kroger. So we'll definitely kind of touch on that as well. And you just dropped the email in there.
Yeah, I put my email in the chat. I don't want to send the actual link the to the report yet because we haven't finished the report and I haven't set up the link. So if you email me and and let me know if you want access to the report, I'll definitely make sure that you add that link when it's ready.
Oh, that's great, man. Hey, Russell, quick thing, direction BSI. Russell asked a question and so did Sid, but before we wrap, wanted us to speak on the direction BSI should take as a community in the short term. When you say that, you're saying like maybe like the topics in there or as investors. I just think it's going to be, I like group economics, but I also like, to a man, we all have to a family, we all have our own, our initial small business is our household. And it has to be a matchup to what has to come in line to what we have as a family, I can't really say what the direction should be for the community. I just think we should all embrace everybody, each other, and not shoot down an idea if it's, if someone I don't dog someone else's selection as long as they don't, I don't try to go at other people's ideas, because if you have a thesis behind it or it's just, I try not to give like a heavy suggestion. Like when you see the topic of like, hey, you need to buy this right now. You better, who got in, you better get in right now. You're going to miss the boat. And you can't really know we can't predict price. We can predict that, hey, there's a possibility of a move and be in position to capitalize, or is like, this something I want to invest in over the next, I want to have an investment strategy in place, whether it's short term, mid-term, long term, but I need to have an idea of what I want to do once I get in the stock. And I think I guess the direction should be continued education rather than immediately jumping into a trade thinking that we're going to flip it and then pull out 80% gains every day, So you go ahead, Maurice.
Oh, no, I guess, I don't know. For me, it's a network with a lot of people. So, and I'm not an admin, so I can't, I guess, regulate people. But I guess, what I would hope members would get out of it or do coming in is, just like you said, take seriously knowing what you own and why you own it. Like, regardless if it's for a long-term investment or a 2-minute day trade, like, kind of in your example, if somebody put out buy this, like, if you are big enough to put that out there, buy this, show why, show what, what is your thinking behind it to get into that. And then on the flip side of that, like people coming in, I'm gonna have $5,000 this weekend. What should I buy? Like
Right.
that. I mean, like I can't tell people to not do that. Like I'm just not that person. But it just those posts really, in a way, hurt my heart because this industry, you can't even call it a game. This industry is not the lottery, and that's what people sound like when I'm gonna have $5,000 on Friday. What should I buy? And I I don't think people inherently see or believe that that's the mentality that it comes from. Um, I just and that's not to put no. I mean, folks like to play lottery, but I just think that this industry is worth um, learning and getting familiar with a strategy. It's worth it because it's been proven that there are thousands of ways to make money in the market. Like all the different books at the bookstores, all of these different charts and indicators. Somebody came up with this and made some money off of it. And the fact that there are so many on here, there are just so many ways to make money in this market, and it's on every member or every person to be willing to take the time to find out you know what kind of farm you like Warren Buffett say, if you treat each one like you're going to buy a farm that's going to feed your family, and you need to know about that farm and that soil and them crops and what the seasons are like with them crops, what the livestock is like, what the area
Right.
is like, how far you going to have to travel to get feed. Like if you buying a farm, even if you go out, you got to know that stuff. So even if you take that at face value or surface level, um, for, like I said, a 2 second day trade, like still, taking the time to learn an approach, rather than just, seeing, a bunch of people post, yeah, I bought this option and it went up 400%. Like, I know people that do that on the regular. I could call out a couple names that do that on the regular, but I also been with them when they put their time in. I know what it took for them to build their capital up and why they're able to take certain positions that get them 3, 4, 5,000 every single day. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's possible. I mean, it's
Well,
possible.
okay. As we moving on with that, I put something. I put your favorite paper, your favorite periodical up on the screen. Is it showing up? IBD.
Oh no, not yet. I still see your I was about to say Trading View, but your TOS.
Let's see. Here we. Wow, man. I can mess up some. There we go. This should be it, right?
Yeah, that's the paper.
Yeah. Okay, guys. I'm pulling up
That's the big baby right
this
there.
daily. You can go to investors.com. Now, this is a paid subscription for that, but you can also find the free segments. But right here, we were touching on earnings earlier and wanted to have everyone be careful if you try to trade earnings. But if you're an investor during earnings, you're in for that long haul anyway. You have to ride the wave, and it's worth it. And Maurice had mentioned that, hey, it would be a positive move to listen to an earnings call, because they'll do the conference call and you'll get a lot of times, whether through your broker or you go to the website, pretty much every website, you're going to be able to find the link to your earnings. But you need to know when your companies report if you're interested in them, because the toughest thing to do is like, hey, I have $5,000 and I want to look something to trade, blah, blah. Because Maurice mentioned that those are the posts that we see, and you hop in and don't realize earnings is that next day or that day after the bell. And sometimes, hey, it might run up to the moon and you're like, I hit the bag, and you think it works every time. And that's when a lot of things happen that could be detrimental. Like right here on what I'm highlighting is Wall Street expects Delta, this is from this past week, this current week, Delta to swing to a per share loss of 51 cents, 153% drop from a year ago, profit of 90 cents per share. Revenue is expected This is what I'm saying. A lot of expected, uh, analyst forecast. Let's see if there's another expected. There's no, it's not gospel when an analyst makes his statement.
Mm-hmm.
Not gospel. So you can't get ahead of price and say, okay, Wall Street expects Delta to drop, and I'm buying puts. And Delta, let's say Delta pops because it doesn't drop as far.
That happens too. It drops, but it don't go as far as people expected.
And they try to spin that as dovish. But okay, so you buy puts, it pops. You're like, you know what? Oh man, Delta's on that move. And you say, you know what? Let me get some calls on Delta because it caught that as positive. You buy the calls and it reverts back to the mean and it goes back down to the overall trend. That's the whipsaw. This is I'm going back to the screen. Am I on the Thinkorswim right now?
Nope.
Good Lord.
I see IBD.
You know what, man? Let me just do it the right way and share the screen, the overall screen. And
that's what I do. I set all my screen, all my pages up, and
that's
the whole screen.
I was doing. But okay. Gentleman asked about DraftKings. They just did their IPO or released an IPO. But right now, man, on DraftKings, this is one. IPOs are speculative maneuvers for me, and I think there's nothing happening to bet on right now. Unless, I know they're going to find things to post about but I was a fan of DraftKings, but I actually can't invest in DraftKings or trade it due to my regular day job. So it's my industry that they sent that out, and Major League Baseball was like that. We do not get involved with that. There's a guy trying to get into the Hall of Fame right now for the last 30 years, Pete Rose, behind a couple of gambling things. But I want to touch on something before we wrap, though, Mo. We talked about Maurice's the DCG, the monthly report. I think that monthly report, that outlook, is key to have a blueprint, a game plan for success. But I want to touch on a couple of particular companies, man, to see what your thoughts are. We're going to go, family, and the left-hand side of the screen, I have, this is my watch list. It was weekly strength. And I was looking over a few companies the other night down one of my overall lists, and I saw some trends that caught my attention. And the one that really caught my attention initially was this one, Mo, CrowdStrike. Now, CrowdStrike, with regards to just how they're moving over the last several weeks, and we talking about certain setups, certain patterns. Now, I see this is a strong bull flag on the weekly right here, and flag patterns are prevalent in a lot of things, a lot of areas. We can even go over to the my doji right here with the almost 3-pin money with the rollover. But this is a strong flag pattern with increasing volume. I put Crowd on my list just of a strong watch. And these aren't recommendations to go in and buy, but this list over to the left is a list that caught my attention of possibly companies that are on the move with momentum that we need to do further investigation on. If you want to do it as a long-term investment, you need to research it, or you can even trade it. But look at Teladoc right now. This is the weekly right now. We already had and if you want to call it, this is actually a bull flag for me with even or if a pennant, with the strong pullback into more, with strength. But I also look, guys, at the RSI, which is the relative strength index. Mo, do you use RSI?
Yes, sir.
And if I'm over 70, that's overbought. Below 30 is oversold. Let me raise it just a little bit. And now it doesn't mean that the price is going to immediately reverse, but it lets you know that, hey, pay attention, that we're at extended levels, and stocks can remain overbought or oversold status for several weeks at a time, which is evident right here with Teladoc. It caught that Rona momentum when everybody was rolling out of bed to the opposite side. Let's pull up. Let's just go. Who's just tumbled? I'll just put Jets back up there. That's the same chart where Teladoc is going up. The Rona waterfall is pushing Jets down, and they're in oversold status for several weeks. And it doesn't guarantee that it's going to pop out of here. It just means that, okay, it's a lot of weakness going on, but sometimes there's an area that where you run into, it's basically either a buy zone or a demand zone where it becomes attractive. The stronger companies become attractive to either institutional investors or even just your retail investors. And it reaches an area where it becomes a buy. I want to talk about one thing, see what your thoughts are on. I got AMD, Apple, Clorox.
I like Clorox.
And Clorox.
I like Clorox. That's a weekly too, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the weekly.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It has the run. It found some support down here. I mean, when everybody's rolling out of bed to the downside, Clorox found strength, and even on their sell-off days, it's staying above previous levels. So they're making higher lows
and higher highs.
And the price isn't consolidating like to go to a point to where it's like, oh no, it's run out of steam. It's coming up with, and I told my son about this right here. This particular candle on the week of March 16th, every so often, someone might put a buy order in at a certain level, and you might get a candlestick, a wick that'll go up this direction and tap a price level, or it'll even go down and fill somebody at an insanely low level, But the overall trend and strength on Clorox, I like that trend, and it's not over-exhausted, even though it is overbought to an extent. But we saw on previously, guys, on the RSI that you can stay in this level for periods. I mean, if we go to Beyond Meat, there's been times when Beyond Meat was overbought, just unreal periods. I'd rather go the daily on Beyond Meat right here, and you can see those statuses where the periods I'm at the bottom of the screen. If you're looking on the screen, guys, the RSI was above 70. So this was an IPO. When it reached that pinnacle, a peak, we had a little look to where Maurice and we could watch this and say, hey man, there's a doji on the day right here for Beyond. That's a short. It's extended. It reached a peak. You don't immediately hop in, but you can expect price decline. When you make a run and you exhaust yourself, you have an exhaustion candle at the end of a run, really an exhaustion candle, and the bulls come in, try to push it up, and say, no thanks, man. We're going to push you guys back down. It's kind of an impasse, and then the bears really enter that market. But anything you want to look at before on this chart? Any particular companies? I know you mentioned we had Ross, we had Dollar General, Kroger, and these would all be for long-term consideration for buys. Long-term now, and something like Dollar General, but they could be day trades or swing trades if you research properly. But go ahead, Mo.
I guess I don't have any in particular I want to look at. What I can say, what I have advised, March and April, and probably for May too. I got to look at some data. Is this is a no buy time for long term, in my opinion.
I got you.
I just think it's too volatile. I think this is a trader's market, and if you're looking to buy, if honestly, the strongest companies right now have been Microsoft, Amazon, Netflix, Facebook. Um, it's that and Apple. Like that's pretty much been it. So I mean, if you're not buying Apple or Microsoft, like some money market funds for a little while. Some gold, I say buy gold. GLD, you probably could pull that one up.
I have
GLD.
that on the list, man. It should be in the right over here. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it had a
gold,
nice strong run the last several weeks.
and that's likely going to continue.
And that
And
touches that's a
Bitcoin.
hedge. Of course.
And Bitcoin.
Uh, we mentioned we should talk about hedging, protecting. Well, okay, so you say it's not a buyer's market. It's absolutely a trader's market with there's no discernible trend that can stick right now.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say a lot of people are furloughed. But if you are a new young investor and your job is able to work remotely and you're in a 401k, now what I did personally, I took several months ago, I took everything not out of the 401k, but I went over to stable, basically almost a money market and a couple of bond funds because I felt we were at a peak of some issues, but I didn't know Corona was coming. But I need to protect where we are, and I not a hedge, but I bought physical silver for the family for the holidays. Now that was somewhat of a hedge for me. It was the price wasn't over the top for us. It was a reasonably priced position, and I didn't go through a multi-level marketing company where I had to sign up 6 or 7 people before I can get my silver. I went to a local mint, that had it and that they produced it, and it's it was spot price plus a little bit of a surcharge. But that's one of the areas I looked at. But I wanted one more thing. A couple of people asked a couple of things about. We talked about. Want to talk about Shop and Square.
I like Square too.
Square is on. You know what? Let me just.
I like that for a long-term hold.
Square is in that sector. They're like a disruptor, ahead of the game, to where it's causes people to panic a little bit, in that what is it? Not FinViz, but fintech.
Square way ahead of the game. They just ain't caught up yet. I mean, Square, you got Bitcoin wallets, you got fractional investing through Square, and they're one of the first like kind of small but big name companies to lend to the small business during this thing. Like, and they're coming out with their own. And
Square lending.
Square, man. Let me see if I can find the article. Man, look. Square ahead of the game, bro. I like Square. I've always liked Square.
Let's see.
That Cash App, bro. Listen.
Hold on. Wait a second. I see that's why I wasn't putting 2 and 2 together with
man. That's why I was saying Square, but it's Cash App. They got the Bitcoin wallet. You can buy Bitcoin. You can withdraw and deposit because it's a fully functional wallet. They also got you can buy. Now I don't know if it's fractional shares. I gotta look that up. But you can buy stocks.
Oh yeah.
On there too. So Square.
Said just mentioned IBD did a great webinar on hedging. Go to cash, buy inverse funds like SQ3s or index options and puts. I think that this is a time for before you put money at risk or on risk on, it should be education on right now. Immediate research, immediate education, immediate reading. But let's go to DG. Your call from several weeks ago. What caught your attention again for those who didn't hear it before? Because this is setting up again. It's running, and the pullback that we would look for on a weekly, and let's see with the daily. Just go with the year. Got a little gap up, which was closed. Oh man, I could see pull back to support, find some support, and either going to a trading range and then consolidate and break out. But I mean, this Dollar General is one to continue to watch.
Yep, I agree. Especially like I said, if I'm considering economic things, that's why this one has been on my radar for a minute. Is since really 2018. Because like you said, like making um adjustments to the portfolio or whatever, like it's been written all over the market since 2018. That this was coming. It just needed something to push it.
Overextended. The catalyst
Man,
was the Rona.
the catalyst was the main one that bust in with the shotgun. So
Yeah.
but I mean, it's been written on. So discount retail. I always have followed, and I shop at Dollar General. Well, not Dollar General. I shop at Dollar Tree, to get the $1 stuff. But I know
Right.
people that shop at Dollar General. I know
We do both, man, and
you know what I'm saying? Like Family Dollar. Like I try to stick with stuff that I know because I'm familiar with it and I'm around it and I drive by them. So when I see, and especially in Atlanta, the last 5 years or so, man, Dollar General's been popping up everywhere. Like it's Dollar General's except for Buckhead and downtown. Like that's the only place in Atlanta that don't have Dollar General's popping up. So it's like, I've been watching the company. I guess just long story short, I've been watching it and they've been on my radar and, looking into how well they've been performing within that sector relative to the other discount retail companies. And, what the chart looked like. It's definitely one to watch with everything going on and nobody really know when anybody's gonna be able to go back to work. If people are gonna have jobs when they go back to work, like I think discount retail is one to definitely discount retail and grocery is one to definitely keep your eyes on because that's
I'm gonna pull the screen back up 1 second. Let's see. Kylan mentioned 5.9 Incorporated.
5.9.
He just brought that up, and look at the strength on this. I have the daily up, but I want to go to the weekly because I know that each chart builds on the lower time frames build on each time. Weekly definitely looks like that. Now, the angle chart,
beautiful trend.
that's an amazing. Yes, the weekly.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Whoever got into this early with the run is riding a gravy train. I'm expecting a pullback to whatever support levels they find, but the gravy train, the overall trend, that's a weekly trend.
And you know what? And that makes sense too. 5.9 has been a company that's been highlighted and or relatively highly rated in IBD. I'm looking at the date now and it's saying back to 2018. 2017. I could believe that because I read the paper and like I always see this company, but I just never. I don't know. It was just they never really just dig deeper into that one. So I just never. But man, like I can see it now. That's why they highly rated.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you this. Let's go back in here before we close things down. I want to. Okay, we have everybody's looking for every topic of discussion when you go on the news, whether it's CNN, CNBC, Bloomberg. They talk about we need a vaccine. We need, and everybody's looking at Guild, ABB. Whether it's Guild who have remdesivir had issues. The last, actually, it was yesterday when that crashed. But look at this now. If you buy into this stock, you're going to have your heart monitor in check because tech field. Now, people, the XBI, and okay, to answer Russell's question about JETS, I was looking at JETS not as a trader or an investor, but as the ETF that's a barometer. Like I want to catch the pulse rate of the particular sector, of the airline sector. That's something I'm just watching. I haven't traded it or anything. It just keeps like this right here. This is the ETF for the biosector. It's the SPDR. Not looking at it as a trader or an investor, but I'm looking at it as either, well, I'm looking at it from both perspectives, but not to trade it. Actually, I'm looking at it like, okay, this particular sector caught a lot of momentum, but it's a little steam running out a little bit, just a little decreasing volume daily.
It's that resistance too. I was just about to say
It's
gonna have
right.
a decision to make real soon.
Somebody
It's either gonna bust
through
through
with
or
the
it's gonna break down.
phase 3 trial. Somebody, because it just happened that they said hydroxychloroquine. They're talking about the heart issues with it. So let's put right up. I'm gonna put just a rough resistance line at 97.85 on the daily. Just as something where it's not that far away from making a decision, because the gap down right here on the weekly was the low was 96.56, the close was 97.26. So it's coming up to the point of line in the sand.
Yep.
A decision, like Mo said, has to be made, either bust through. And a lot of times, if it breaks through resistance, it doesn't immediately just continue up. It'll go through and fail and test.
It's going to test that as support.
And
I always think about it like a ball. Like if you throw a ball hard enough through a ceiling, it's still going to come down and treat that ceiling as the next floor before it decides to bounce back up again. It's the same thing. And it's all physics. It's all science, baby. It's all science.
Well, keep your eyes on this sector, guy. Okay, the biotech sector, because the thing about the biotech sector is right now, you remember how every time we would get the news and he would say, oh, we have the China deal in play. And if President Trump would tweet about it or do a press conference about it, the market would react.
Yep.
Right now, we have the Cuomo index, which when they go around 1 o'clock over in New York, when Governor Cuomo gives the breakdown of the new virus, the new hospitalizations and the death tolls in New York, that the market kind of is not reacting as much, but it's paying attention to it. But also the market is responding to the biotech sector, because when Guild released early that said the remdesivir, the World Health Organization released the information on that Guild wasn't showing what they wanted for that drug test. The market reacted. So biotech sector is a sector to keep an eye on. XLV is also healthcare, but I would keep an eye on the biotech sector itself. But it's a similar pattern, similar train of thought. We're coming up to those levels of resistance, truly a double top. At the reverse head and shoulders in here, but it's got some decisions to make. I want to touch on last thing. See what your thoughts are. Caution in the REITs, man, because this is what came out the other day. It said it's crazy. The Mnuchin said let's pull it up, man. Mnuchin mentioned that the banks, okay, there's protection for the lenders, like the big banks, and let me just pull it up. But there's protection for the landlord somewhat, and we get forbearance as the consumer, as a mortgagee, but the loan servicers, the mortgage servicers, don't have protection. He stated, and this was big, man, and so it's something to keep an eye on. I'm gonna share this right here. This was yesterday, April 23rd. Anyway,
is that Bloomberg? Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah, I can't believe that, man. It said the mortgage servicers, man, right here. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, and you can see the screen, right? Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, Stephen Mnuchin, said that the U.S. has no current plans to create a Federal Reserve facility to inject funding into non-bank mortgage servicers. So there's some REITs that invest in that, real estate investment trusts. This might not happen over the next few weeks, but there's that 90-day forbearance period. When those expire, because companies like Cheesecake Factory, other big
Mm-hmm.
and mortar places have told these services that they can't pay their mortgage. Like Mr. Cooper is going to have to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's there is a problem, a pending problem in that market. And guys, Cedric and Colin, I was in ATVI today, and I got stopped out twice, but the setup is dynamic for which this is the time. But anyway, I just think guys pay attention to those sectors. In any sector, tell everyone to keep an eye on as we move forward. As you said, tech sector is big.
Yeah, I guess overall, I'm looking at, or I guess kind of a global, where this market is headed. The NASDAQ 100, the tech sector. I'm going to continue to look for them to be relatively range bound. Actually, I think tech is going to do a little bit better than the average market. So because everybody's at home with tech, but I still think that there's some downward pressure. So I think tech, the NASDAQ 100 or the XLK ETF is one to watch. I also agree with you with the banks and especially regionals dealing with the mortgage servicers, regional banks exposed to airlines, regional banks exposed to oil and gas,
Yes.
especially U.S. oil and gas, especially oil and gas. That one, I just think that that whole oil thing is just interesting economic thing going on with the world right now. It's going to create some geopolitical tension eventually, is my prediction. But as far as for the U.S. stock market, yeah, I think oil is one to watch. Tech is one to watch, and just during this earnings season, take a note of companies and how they talk about forward guidance. Those companies that are able to continue or that have given forward guidance or are able to give
This is
some
big.
type of forward guidance, take note of those because they're able to tell what they're gonna do. Like it's something about them where they ain't been able to, they don't have to pull it. So
that's a strong company that goes in and makes that decision to talk about forward guidance and not pull it.
And most of these major companies are not, and they pulling it, telling investors no. So I would make note of any company that just is able to give forward guidance, and if you trade in a company or are invested in the company or have one in your portfolio that's reporting this week, just kind of get an idea of how the managers are talking about forward guidance, and that'll give you some tidbits on the next couple months.
Well, hey guys, look, we're gonna wrap this up. I want to let you know I put my put my email in the chat bar, jd@yourmobiletrader.com. I have an email group that I send out. I'll send out alerts. I'll send out
welcome, Colin.
Just commentary, a newsletter, and sometimes I'll make a call on certain things like Verizon or Nat. The is almost an oil tanker that because there's no place to store the oil. I felt that a company like Nat might catch a little bit of a boost, and it did the last day or so. But that's not a recommendation because we're going to run. It's at a line, a point of contention right now to where the pullback is imminent. It's going off of news headlines. But my call right now, I'm keeping a strong eye on ATVI, on Activision Blizzard. Call of Duty's come out, which I don't really pay attention to the news, but it does move it. And we have a setup. We have some consolidation at these price levels around 66.30, 66.60. And now a decision will be made whether it breaks through and finds a little, find some strength.
That's gonna happen Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly.
That one ready to go.
I'm watching Activision and keep an eye on that, guys. And
I can write that down.
I just think we should all. And the last two things, man. I keep saying it's the last one before I mentioned to Mo last week. I said, man, long term, my gut feel like a gut check on the speculative play, the casinos. And I was like, you know what? And next thing I know, I see the guy in Las Vegas talking about, hey, we're ready for you guys to come back. But I really think people are going to try to spend that money, smoke those Marlboros, ride on those little motorized wheelchairs, man, and with the oxygen tanks on there, so they can spend that money on those slots. And I'm not making a call on these, but these companies are kind of in the doldrums. They don't know what's going on. You can see prices in the trading range. It's still in a bearish trend. It's not a positive move, but I was looking at will this sector find support? It's going to depend on whether the airlines get back pumping. This might be a year and a half from now, where before back up to previous levels. But I was thinking it might be a short-term industry pop if some type of news comes out. But don't put that down as hey, let's go get these. But just keep your eyes on the sector of the casinos. Just
wait. That's a lot of volume on that second to last, that green candle. That second to last.
Yeah,
one,
man.
That's a whole lot of volume.
Wind caught some wind.
Ooh.
Let's see real quick the casino sector. And guys, make baskets of stocks that you can pay attention to, Port, and he narrowed them down. But this is the gaming sector. I'm not a Caesars Boyd. Wind caught it, and Las Vegas Sands always fine. Let me see if the volume came in on them. Not really, but Caesars, there it is. That's what I was looking for. Caesars merged with somebody, man, or they're having something in the something going on right here in the casinos, man. And there's going to be certain ones that stick it out and figure it out, and they'll merge together if necessary, or somebody's going to be strong enough to make it happen. But Diamond Eagles mergers with DraftKings. Now that's going to be big too, but I don't, Caesars Entertainment establishes a system. So just keep an eye on that sector, but I'm looking at ATV out for next week, guys. And please email me with questions, and we'll be back next Friday, Mo. Same bat time, same bat
bat channel.
All that, man. We tried Cisco last week. Says talking about leaps on the institutional. Absolutely. And let's see hey, guys, we talk about options. A lot of times there's a speculative move on certain things that you try to look at, and leaps are the long, it's a long-term play. Boy,
going out a year or two.
How far?
21.
You go 2021 with that?
It would be at least the next year.
And a lot of action, man, on that $105 leap. But these are pricey leaps. But you're going out so long. But honestly, you get that Corona check at that $2,000 level, and you have till January of 2021 for the to stick in that range of the $75. And you're already in the money. So basically, you have the option to purchase WYNN at the price of $75. That gives you the option, right? That's what you're buying. You're paying for this option to buy at that price. So if the price runs up to 120, it becomes even more valuable. That's just theoretically. You're able to buy in at the price of $75. So guys, do your research on LEAPS, LEAPS is that's just a term that's in the options world for the phrase. There we go. Great leap. Long-term equity anticipation securities. So that's what you have, long-term equity anticipation securities for LEAPS, guys. And we're going to wrap it up, man. I'm going to touch, let's see, we touched the chat bar, but Mo, you have any closing statements?
Nah, man, just everybody have a great weekend. If you want, access to the report or to DGG or to Bitcoin or stocks, reach out to me. Yeah, I'm quite friendly.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Great individual. We want to thank everybody for coming in. Said, Kylan, let's see, we have the Nike guest, Russell Yates, Sakara. Thank you beautiful wife, LaWanna. I think she had a log out. But guys, we'll be
Thank
back
y'all.
next week. And we'll see you, man. Trade safely, invest safely, and keep studying.
Yep.
All right. Enjoy. All right.
right.
Talk with you.
All right. Have a good one, bro.
All right.